Hello, scholars. Welcome back. We are going on to chapter 6, but let's do a little recap. So, in the last chapter, um, Winnie met Jane, who was traveling with her family to Portland. So, that was nice for her to see another little girl to play with. And then they decided to play some hide and seek with her brother Johnny. And Johnny seemed like not the nicest boy, and definitely had some interesting negative thoughts that he held about the Chinese. And Winnie found herself defending them, so go Winnie, woot woot, I like her. But when they were hiding in the stagecoach during hide and seek, two men from the Union Pacific Railroad were kind of talking about the Chinese, and not in a kind way, but then were also saying that they were being taken advantage of, which is true. They were taken advantage of. They weren't paid fair wages, and they were definitely exploited. Right? They were used to come for cheap wages, and they didn't pay them very well, and didn't take care of them very well. But Flapjack and Winnie are thinking that they maybe want to cause some trouble, since the two railroads are competing to lay track, because each mile of track that they lay is some land that they get, and at the end that's going to be a lot of money. So there's definitely some competition there. So there's something fishy going on. So maybe we'll learn about it in chapter 6. Okay, keep trucking along. On Sundays, the railroad workers were supposed to rest. They caught up on their sleep or played games or even cleaned their clothes. It was the one day Winnie expected to spend with her father. But things did not work out that way. On the first Sunday, her father was in bed with a cold. On the next two, he ended up traveling on railroad business. The fourth Sunday, though, dawned bright and clear. It was a perfect day for a picnic. The Tuckers piled into the buckboard right after breakfast and headed for Donner Lake. They arrived there just in time for lunch. Mrs. Swanson had made them up a basket that would feed them twice. There was fried chicken and deviled eggs, biscuits, and 2 kinds of pies. Winnie tried everything, including both pies. "It's beautiful here," she said. "I wish we could stay forever." Her mother laughed. "What about Sacramento, Winnie? Don't you want to go back?" "Well, I miss Rose and Julia, of course." Winnie made a face. "But I'm not looking forward to school. Rose says we're going to learn dance." "Dance," her father gasped. "How horrible! Not with boys, I hope." Winnie folded her arms. "Not right away." Eli smiled and mopped his brow. "That's a relief," he said. Marjorie looked out at the lake, brushing the pie crumbs from her skirt. The blue water was still, reflecting the mountains beyond them. "It's beautiful here," she said, "but a little sad, too." "Sad," said Winnie. Her mother nodded. "The country is changing fast, Winnie. I came through here in '49 on a Conestoga wagon. It took 6 strong horses to pull it. The wagon was like a house on wheels. Everything we owned was in there. We lived in it for most of the year, coming west from St. Louis. But you made it safely." "We did. Not everyone was so lucky. 20 years ago, people died of starvation right around here." Winnie gulped. "Died?" "Donner Lake is named for the Donner Party," her mother went on. "They were a group of immigrants traveling west. They got stuck up here for the winter of 1847. Many starved to death." Even in the bright June sunshine, Winnie shivered. "Well, we won't starve," said her father, patting his stomach. "Not today, at any rate." He stood up and stretched. "I have something for you in the buckboard, Winnie." "What is it?" Winnie asked. His father pulled back a blanket and took out a kite. It was shaped like a diamond, with a tail of red cloth Winnie beamed. "It's wonderful! I'm going to try it right now." She ran through the field, trailing the kite behind her. She imagined the wind lifting her kite high. It would soar past the clouds. It would dance with the sun. Winnie turned the kite. The kite was dragging along the ground. The wind was paying no attention at all. "Come on, kite," said Winnie. "Do you hear me? Let's go." Someone laughed behind her. Winnie turned. It was Lee, the boy from the railroad. Winnie was embarrassed. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Lee shrugged. He was in a good mood. "I have cleaned my clothes. I am not needed to kill chickens and pigs. I like the lake, so here I am." "Well, I don't need you laughing at me. Go away." Lee eyed the fallen kite. "I do not want to go away. I want to help." "I know what I'm doing," said Winnie. "A kite is like a bird," said Lee. "You cannot pull it like a wagon. May I try?" "I guess so," said Winnie. It was hard to stay angry at someone who didn't get angry back. He handed over the kite. "First, we must learn the wind," he said. Lee looped the string around his hand. Winnie had to admit he seemed to know what he was doing. "Now we begin." Lee ran back and forth, shifting the kite with the breeze. In his hands, it truly flew like a bird. He soon had the kite up above the trees. Winnie had to keep up with him. "Don't you wish you could fly like that?" she asked. "I can," said Lee, "in my dreams." He turned to Winnie. "Now it's your turn." He gave her back the kite and showed her how to keep pressure on the string. They stood silently watching the kite dip and weave against the blue sky. They stirred only when passing a cloud blocked out when a passing They stirred only when a passing cloud blocked out the sun. "Where did you learn to fly kites?" Winnie asked. "From my father many years ago." "I'm visiting my father this summer. He works for the railroad. My mother and I came out from Sacramento on a train." "I would like to ride the train someday," said Lee. "It makes me think of a great iron dragon." Winnie laughed. "Why, that's what I think too. It eats fire and breathes steam." "My brother Tom once rode behind the engine," said Lee. "He said it was very noisy." "A dragon is not a quiet beast," said Winnie. They watched the kite take a sudden dip. "Can your parents take the train to visit you?" Winnie asked. "No," said Lee. "They are dead. A terrible sickness took them in San Francisco. It was long ago." I'm sorry," said Winnie. Lee nodded. "Afterward, my brother Tom and I lived in a miner's house. I worked in the house. Tom worked in the mine." "How long were you there?" Winnie asked. Here's a picture of the kite. "3 years. It is where I learned English. When the mine closed, we had to leave." "Aren't you too young to work for the railroad?" said Winnie. "They do not look at us closely," said Lee. "And they were happy I spoke English. Tom is older. He works with the miners." "So does my father," said Winnie. "Maybe they know each other." Lee shrugged. "There is little time for meeting," he said. "My father's sitting over there," said Winnie. She pointed to towards the water. "With my mother. Would you like to meet them? You could have some pie." Lee looked uncomfortable. "I like pie, but I do not think so. Things are happening." "Things?" Winnie frowned. "What things?" Suddenly she remembered the two men she had overheard in town. "Many workers are not happy. We work hard as anyone, but we are not treated the same." Winnie thought about the storekeeper and Jane and Johnny. She didn't know what to say. "Some voices," said Lee, "speak of working no more. They are angry voices." "What do you think?" Winnie asked. I do not decide yet, said Lee. He gave her back the kite string. Maybe I say too much. It is getting late. Goodbye, Winnie Tucker. He turned and ran away. Winnie pulled in the kite and walked slowly back to her parents. Who was that, Winnie? Her father asked. Chinese, wasn't he? Yes, Papa, that was Lee, the celestial I met before. Lee seems to know about kites, said her mother. Winnie nodded. He knows a lot. He used to work for a miner after his parents died. That's how he learned English. She paused for a breath. And Papa, remember what I told you about those men in town? When I asked Lee about it, he got nervous. I think the Celestials are angry. Her father sighed. They may well be, but sometimes you can't go looking for trouble. You have to wait for it to hit you over the head. Come on now, let's clean up, and then we'll take that boat ride I promised. Winnie enjoyed rowing on the lake. She made ripples in the water with her hand and splashed her father with an oar. Her attention also wandered. What kind of trouble could be coming? And when? Maybe she couldn't do anything about it. But she kept thinking about Lee and the angry voices. The end. I'll see you back here for Chapter 7. Bye now.